Hello, I'd like to thank today Chazak organization and Torah Anytime for hosting this Divrei Torah, this shiur, and like to speak again about this great organization, Chazak, that brings people close to Yirat Shamayim, to Torat Hashem, and brings and puts kids that are in public schools, in yeshivot, a great cause. Secondly, Torah Anytime, that is the world power of distributing Torah to the entire world, and it's available anytime. It's called Torah Anytime. This shiur is Leilui Nishmat Paya Batzvi Hirsch. We're talking about Elul. We're getting ready for Elul, and one of the very hard things to do is change from vacation and ben hazmanim and between school, camp, and school starting again mode to the mode of Elul. It's very, very hard change. We used to now going out, having good time, spending time with family and friends, spending time out of the city, and all of a sudden we have to come back, and we have to come back extremely serious. So serious that we're starting Elul. Elul is a frightening time. There used to be that Gdolei Israel, when they heard the word Elul throughout the year, they would start trembling and shaking. Elul is something that really needs to shake us up. And the question is, how do we change from that mode to the mode of Elul? It's not like on the phone where you press the mode airplane and all of a sudden it changes. Over here, it's a change of heart. Change of heart is something that can't be done with a press of a button. We need a little bit of explanation to that. Rambam writes something that maybe could at least give us some understanding to that. Rambam writes in Hilchot Tshuva, אף על פי שתקיעת שופר בראש השנה גזירת הכתוב. רמז יש בו. The Torah says that one must blow the shofar on Rosh Hashanah. And we know that we blow the shofar, the minhag, as the Tur brings down, to blow the shofar starting Rosh Chodesh Elul. The Ashkenazim do it after Tfilat Shacharit, Sfaradim do it during Selichot. The Rambam writes there's a hint to that תקיעת השופר. What is it? אורו אורו ישנים משנתכם והקיצו נרדמים מתרדמתכם. Wake up from your sleep. That's what the shofar message is. Shofar comes to tell us, wake up, you're sleeping. וחפשו במעשיכם וחזרו בתשובה וזכרו בוראכם. Remember הקדוש ברוך הוא and come back to him. הוא הדוז, אלו השוכחים את האמת באבלי הזמן ושוגים כל שנתם באבל וריק. אשר לא יועיל ולא יציל. People are sleeping throughout the year. Comes the shofar to wake us up. Not physically, spiritually. Wake us up. Wake the heart up. Wake the soul up. לפיכך, a person has to do everything possible to find ways to change his ways. Rav Salmi Salant wrote letters that address, many of them, how one should change his ways at this time of Elul, starting Elul, before and after. And he writes in letter Zayin, the 7th letter, that everything in the world works with cause and effect. If you see, for example, that something grew on the field, you should know there was a cause to it, that the farmer came and planted it. You see corn growing on the field? So there was a farmer that came and planted the corn, and now the effect is that the corn grew. And to that also, that the farmer planted the corn, there was a cause as well. What's the cause of him bringing him to plant the corn? He probably wanted to either eat the corn or sell the corn for a different reason. So that was the cause of him going and planting the corn. And why is it that he wants to sell? That also has a cause. Why does he want to sell? Probably he needs money. He needs money to live. So that's the cause of him convincing him to wake up in the morning, go to the field, put the boots, put the gloves, start digging and planting the corn, and so on and so forth. So the letter over here of Avisal Salant, he wants to know, since now we have to change our ways in Chodesh Elul, he says, what can cause that effect of change of heart? He says it used to be that the blowing of the shofar, as the Rambam explains, would do the job and it would wake you up. But then he says that it's known that every time you want to get a cause that's very effective, that has a strong meaning, also the effect would have much stronger meaning. And if you want that results on the effect, that it would be very strong, the cause would have to be the same strength as well. But if you're planning to have a weak effect, so you can have a weak cause as well. He says that the shofar blowing today is not so powerful on our heart, as we can see, that people go to shul, they hear the shofar blowing on Rosh Hashanah, or even beforehand, they hear the shofar blowing throughout the month of Elul, and still there's no effect that changes their heart and does some kind of move towards the right direction. And therefore he says that one, in order to change his ways, the remedy to that would be to learn Musar. But we want to touch on a different point today, and I want to explain what the shofar represents as well, besides, or how is it that the shofar should wake us up. And that is based on the beautiful words of the Minchat Elazar, Mimunkach, that the Yanuka Shlita spoke about last year. And the way it's explained is like this. There's a certain move in the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu judges the world from Yud Zayin B'Tammuz until Hoshana Rabbah. What does that mean? HaKadosh Baruch Hu judges the world, as we all know, with the din and rachamim, judgment and mercy. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when he wanted to create the world, in the beginning, he wanted to create everything by judgment, din. Everything would go in the path of judgment, which means a person sins, he gets punished right away. And what's the punishment? According to the sin. But then he saw that it's impossible to have the world operating with judgment consistently. And therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu added to that and combined it with rachamim, with mercy. He, so to speak, diluted it with mercy. And now, when a person sins, he has an opportunity, he doesn't get judged right away, and he gets punished right away. Rather, he has an opportunity. Rachamim means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu waits for him, and he gives him that time, he buys him time, so to speak, so a person could really change his ways in time. Now, the way things work on the calendar is that in Yud Zayin B'Tammuz, din starts getting more harsh. Yud Zayin B'Tammuz is the time that Ben HaMetzarim starts. Those 3 weeks between Yud Zayin B'Tammuz and Tisha B'Av. Yud Zayin B'Tammuz, the din, the judgment, midah in the world starts, and it starts getting harsher and stricter and worse daily. Every day things become more harsh as you come closer to Tisha B'Av. And we see by the way we conduct ourselves. From Yud Zayin B'Tammuz, there's much less minhagim that one takes upon himself to restrict himself than from Rosh Chodesh Av. From when Rosh Chodesh Av starts, then the Midat Adin is much stronger, and because of that, one takes upon himself much more minhagim that he didn't conduct himself with from Yud Zayin B'Tammuz. And as you get closer to Tisha B'Av, it gets more strict. Shavua Shechal Bo, much more strict. Then a person takes upon himself much more things that he's restricted with. And the peak is on Tisha B'Av. Tisha B'Av, it's Itzum Adin, Tokef Adin, the worst din possible on the peak. And therefore, in Tisha B'Av, we mourn to the fullest, and it's slowly, from the midday of Tisha B'Av, it starts getting less din. And therefore, by midday already, you do all kind of things that represent nechama. As Tisha B'Av ends, we go towards the great day of Tu B'Av, the 15th of Av. So therefore, up to now, we went up on din, and now the din goes down from midday of Tisha B'Av, Chatzot, until we reach Tu B'Av. Tu B'Av, the din already went down to the bottom, and then the Rachamim takes over. Rachamim is to the highest extent at that day. It's a great, great day, and because of that, we celebrate this in various ways. Then, from that day on, says the Minchat Elazar, we go towards Rosh Hashanah. So slowly, daily, we are raising, or the Kadosh Baruch Hu, the world, the day, the calendar raises daily the Midat Hadin. Where it was on Midat HaRachamim, which is the opposite of Midat Hadin, is the other extent. It's like you have a bowl, and you have on one side Rachamim, and the other side the Din. Up to now, the Rachamim were on top, and the Din on Tu B'Av was on the bottom. As it changed from Tu B'Av, from Tisha B'Av, that the Din was on top and the Rachamim was on the bottom, there was a quick change until you get to Tu B'Av, from Tisha B'Av until Tu B'Av. And then from Tu B'Av until Rosh Hashanah, it's slowly turning back. And Rosh Hashanah, we're dealing with Yom Adin. That's Yom Adin. That's a harsh day. That's a day of judgment. That's a day that we are in a lot of fear, because on that day, not only that HaKadosh Baruch Hu judges the world, but Midat Adin Metucha on the world. It's a day that you don't have Halel on that day. ספרי חיים וספרי מתים פתוחים לפניך ואתם אומרים שירה. It's impossible to say שירה with Halel when the books of life and death are open in front of a Kadosh Baruch Hu. Afterwards, after Rosh Hashanah, you have the second day of Rosh Hashanah. The Zohar calls the first day of Rosh Hashanah Din Akashya. Second day, Din Arafia. Din Akashya, which means a harsh judgment. Second day already is a weaker judgment. There is a judgment on the second day as well, but it's weaker. It goes down again. From Midat Adin being to the highest, it goes down to give way to Midat HaRachamim. So as we explained, it's like the ball again. The Midat Adin goes down, and on the same time that it goes down, Midat HaRachamim takes over. It's a beautiful concept. When is the Midat HaRachamim again on top? Hoshana Rabbah. So from the time of Rosh Hashanah until Hoshana Rabbah, it goes to and changes from Midat Adin to Midat HaRachamim. But when can we use the most the Midat HaRachamim? That's on Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur, HaKadosh Baruch Hu sends a flood of Rachamim. It's a tsunami of Rachamim. It continues to Hoshana Rabbah, but on Yom Kippurim we are flooded with Rachamim. As Rosh Hashanah was a harsh Midat Adin, it changes quickly, just like it did between Tisha B'Av and Tu B'Av. A quick change, so that's from Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippurim, 10 days, boom, changes to extreme Midat Rachamim. Why is that? Why is it that those were the words of the Minchat Elazar? Those are the beautiful words of the Yanukah. What is it? Why is it that HaKadosh Baruch Hu made it in such a way? So I was thinking to myself that it's all connected to what we spoke about, the Shofar, and I'll explain. There's something in exercising. Every person that exercises, every athlete knows that there's something called interval training. What does that mean? It means that there's two ways to exercise or to train. One way to train is that you go on a certain pace and you keep on doing the same thing over and over again. Let's say you go on the treadmill. So you run on a certain speed throughout the whole exercise time. So you take yourself, let's say, a running time of 45 minutes, the whole time you run on a certain speed. You go on 3 or 3.5 per hour, and that's the way you go the whole 40 minutes. That's not as effective as doing interval training. Interval training means that you go up and down. So that means, let's say you go on 6 miles and for half a minute, and then you go down to 5 miles for half a minute, and then you go to 4 miles for the next half a minute or minute, and so on and so forth. Many of those treadmills also have certain, it's set up already, and you could set that up that you'll have interval training. It's not only for running, it also has to do with other activities, as one can do more intense activity and then less intense activity, and then we'll go back to doing more intense activity. And those things have much more effect on the body. You maximize this way, for instance, for the heart, the benefit would be on the cardio much more. It would make you more, it would make your heart stronger, you would make your body stronger, would get everything that you want to accomplish in a much more effective way. Your metabolism would work much quicker, it fastens it. Why is that? Because the body doesn't get used to anything. You keep on changing every half a minute or a minute the exercise, so the body doesn't get used to it. If the body is used to doing one thing, as hard as it is, you're running for a whole half hour in the same speed, but the body gets used to that speed. It's not as effective as doing a little bit this speed and a little bit that speed, and again this speed and again a different speed, or this exercise and then change into that exercise, and then a different way of exercise, and the body never gets used to it. It has to keep on changing, and therefore it has much more effect on the body, on the exercise, on the cardio, on the heart, on everything else. Same thing could be in ruchniut. Mibsari echazeh Eloka, the pasuk says. You want to learn the ways of Hashem? Take a look at how the body operates. Just like the body, the physical body, would work better if you do this change every so often, so does in ruchniut, in spirituality. If you keep on changing all the time, that would have much better effect on your neshama, on your nefesh, on the way you'll exercise avodat Hashem. And therefore, could be that that's the idea of the shofar. What happens with the shofar? The shofar doesn't blow a straight blow. If you'll ask a person, a goy, how should you blow the shofar? He'll take the shofar and he'll show you two, that's it. But we don't do it like that. We do two, tashat, tarat, tashrat, tashat, tarat, change. Each set is made out of 3 or 4 different sets, and then you keep on going and changing. Why is that? Because if the shofar purpose, as the Rambam told us, is to change our ways, changing our ways has to be interval, always changing from this to that, from that to this. Because if we do the same thing over and over again, we get used to it. We get used to it. The hergel, the Baalei Musar say, getting used to something is the worst enemy of the neshama. Because when you do something regular, it's mitzvat anashim melumada, as the pasuk says. It's a certain thing that a person does without thinking, without putting his heart to it, without putting his mind to it. He knows, he wakes up in the morning, he runs to shul, he puts the tefillin, he wraps himself with talit, he says the same words, he goes home. Did he think for a second? Many people don't. Why not? Because it's the regular. It's something you're used to. It's the norm. It's a schedule. It's a set schedule. Because of that, one needs to be careful to keep on changing. That's what the shofar comes to represent. And could be, that's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu made it in such a way, as the Minchas Elazar explained, that it goes from din high down to rachamim, and now the rachamim is high. Then again, the rachamim go down, and the din comes up. again on Rosh Hashanah, and then again Rachamim. Why is it? So you're always on your tiptoes, changing, so you can have that effect on you. But sometimes those effects, even though with everything that we're saying, don't get close to the heart. It doesn't get internalized. And therefore, we still have to ask ourselves, what do we do then? Well, Chazal told us something very interesting. In Brachot Nuntet, the Gemara says, לא נבראו רעמים, אלא לפשוט הקמומית שבלב, שנאמר, ואלוקים עשה שירו מלפניו. Which means, if one wants to know why HaKadosh Baruch Hu created thunders, whenever there's rain, a lot of rain, there's also thunders with it. But why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu have to create that it should come with thunders? The purpose of a thunder, says Chazal, is to straighten the akmumit shebalev. Our heart is crooked. How do you make it straight? How do you make sure that it's not crooked anymore? You hear something very, very loud and scary. Well, anybody that experienced a thunder right near him or lightning right near him knows how scary it is. If you experience one from miles and miles away, you hear it, it doesn't affect you. But when it comes very close to you, it definitely has an effect. The person is shaken up from it. The Lashon of Chazal is very interesting. To straighten the heart, which means the heart is crooked. Akmumit shebalev, Chazal say. The heart is crooked. So therefore, how do you make something crooked straight? Well, you have to, again, do it the way we explained before. Because when something is crooked, your Rambam says that you have to bend to the other way. If one has a certain bad midah to the extreme, you have to bring it all the way now to the other extreme. Although normally the Rambam explained that the middle way, the middle path is the correct way to go in everything in the Torah, almost everything. But how do you get to the middle way? If somebody is in one extreme to the negative, if you bring it to the middle, he'll still go back somewhat to the bad, because you can't change a person just bringing him to the middle. You have to push him to the other side, and then when he's on the other extreme, he'll come to the middle. Just like, for instance, sometimes you have a certain paper that's rolled to one side and you want to unroll it. How do you do it? You take it and you roll it to the other side. And then when you roll it to the other side, it somewhat becomes straight. Also here, it's Elokim asa shiru milefanav. How would you experience that? Something that is extremely scary. Now, if you take a look at world events, things are happening now that the scientists are saying that never happened so often and so bad in history. You take a look at nature disasters. There's floodings all over Europe and in China and in India, and earthquakes and building collapsing like in Miami. And we experienced the Miron, and there's hurricanes and there's tornadoes and the volcanic eruptions and so on and so forth. Years ago there were terrible tsunami and things throughout the world. This year, or last year rather, we experienced the virus, the corona, which was terrible, affected and still affecting the entire world in so many different ways, where life, economy, traveling, socializing, so many different ways. You would think maybe it's over, and we almost thought that it's over, and now it comes back in a new form, in a Delta form, in a new variant, which means everything goes in waves, you see. It goes in waves, and it becomes closer one to the other. As we used to experience this 30, 40, 50 years ago, not so close to each other. It's like a woman's giving birth. So she gets the pain, the contractions. So in the beginning, every 20 minutes one, every 18 minutes, every 15 minutes. As it comes close to the labor, it comes closer one to the other. It becomes much more closer and much more intense. Why is this? Chazal tell us when things starts happening like that, it's called the labor of Mashiach. Chevlei Mashiach. Chevlei Mashiach is just like you have Chevlei Leda, pain of labor before giving birth, you have the same thing, pain of labor of the Mashiach. And therefore, Kadosh Baruch Hu does things much closer than it used to be years ago or generations ago. When then something happened every 10 years, every 20 years, now it happens almost every day. If you see the news, it's every day. And Kadosh Baruch Hu made it in such a way that today with the economy, with the technology, everything is videotaped, everything is recorded. Everybody can see it and experience himself what those people are going through. See it exactly. But that also has to have some effect on us. If it doesn't cause us any effect, how is that going to straighten the akmumit shebalev that we have? We also have to have some kind of change with that. So with all those, keeping in mind that the shofar come to blow in order to make us, in order to wake us up. Rabbi Israel Salan says that even if that's not enough, one should learn musar. He explains that not only musar, but Torah. A person in Chodesh Elul, if he didn't learn Torah daily, one should make sure to learn Torah daily. Why is that? Because that is the only thing, says Rabbi Salan in the same letter, that would have an effect on the heart. And even if you don't feel necessarily the effect, and you don't see the effect, but you should know that there was effect on the heart. Sometimes you don't feel it, but there is. It says that just like Rabbi Akiva, when he saw the stone with a hole in it because the water was keep on dripping, drip by drip, on top of the stone, and he caused the hole, it engraved the hole in that stone. He said, look at that. Within time, a drop going one after the other can make an effect on a stone. Definitely the water of Torah was nimshal, was the parable of Torah is water. The Torah nimshela lemayim. And therefore, just like the water that's soft can make a hole on a straw, on a rough stone, if it keeps on going drip by drip and drop by drop without stopping, it's extended period of time. Same thing would be with the Torah Kedosha on our hearts. Or even if our hearts is stone, the Torah Kedosha would have that effect on us. The Chodesh Elul is a time to make that change. A person should start, besides the fact that he's hearing the shofar and trying to connect to the message of the shofar, he should make sure to learn more Torah than he used to. And if he didn't, make sure that he sits down and learns. Learning Torah means you go to the shiur and you open a Gemara and you start learning. It doesn't mean that you hear Shaarei musar all the time. It means that you have to actually sit down, open the Gemara, whether you know how to learn, so you find a chavuta and you learn together with him, or if you don't know how to learn, you go to a shiur. You open up a shiur halacha, a sefer halacha, and you start learning halacha. That also has an effect on our hearts. Together with that, a person should really open his heart to the world events. Those things really should make a change in us. All these things that come in waves, all these world events that come in waves, but they become more constant, as we explained, are the same idea that the Minchat Elazar explained, going up and down. Same idea of the shofar, blowing up, down, one sound like this, another sound like that, to keep us on our tiptoes without getting used to whatever we're doing. That has a tremendous effect on us. And this is what we should do now for Chodesh Elul, that's starting and bringing us Shana, Haba Alenu Letova, that it should be a good, sweet year.